Imagine a massive wall of ice, 700 feet tall, stretching across the horizon to separate the world of men from a frozen, ancient nightmare. Beneath that wall, a group of outcasts stands guard, while thousands of miles to the south, kings and queens plot to sit upon a throne made of 1,000 melted swords. This is the world of Game of Thrones, a television epic that shattered the boundaries of the fantasy genre and turned the pursuit of power into a global obsession. It was a story where no one was safe, where the hero could lose his head in the first act, and where the winter was always coming. The journey began in the mind of George R.R. Martin, whose book series, A Song of Ice and Fire, was considered by many to be unfilmable. The scale was too vast, the cast too large, and the magic too expensive. But showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss saw something deeper, a gritty, political drama that felt more like the War of the Roses than a traditional fairy tale. When the show premiered on HBO in 2011, it introduced us to House Stark, House Lannister, and House Targaryen, families bound by blood and separated by a ruthless ambition for the Iron Throne. The first season set a brutal precedent. By the 9th episode, the show did the unthinkable. It executed its main protagonist, Ned Stark. This single moment changed the way audiences watched television. It sent a clear message that in Westeros, honorable men often finish last, and the traditional hero's journey was a luxury the characters could not afford. It created a culture of spoiler alerts and water cooler conversations that dominated the social landscape for nearly a decade. As the seasons progressed, the spectacle grew to match the ambition of the writing. We witnessed the Battle of the Blackwater, where green wildfire turned the sea into a furnace. We saw the rise of Daenerys Targaryen from an exiled princess to a conqueror with 3 massive, fire-breathing dragons. But the show was at its best when it focused on the intimate, razor-sharp dialogue between characters like Tyrion Lannister, Varys, and Littlefinger. It was a game of chess played with human lives, where a whispered word in a dark hallway was just as lethal as a blade on a battlefield. Then came the Red Wedding. In 2013, a single episode traumatized millions of viewers as 3 major characters were murdered at a marriage feast. It remains one of the most shocking moments in television history, proving that the show was willing to destroy its own narrative foundations to stay true to the harsh reality of its world. It was a masterclass in tension, building a sense of dread that exploded into a sequence that people are still talking about today. The production was a global undertaking. Filming took place across Northern Ireland, Croatia, Iceland, Spain, and Morocco, turning the real world into a living map of the 7 kingdoms. The costume design, the prosthetic work for the White Walkers, and the groundbreaking visual effects for the dragons set a new gold standard for what was possible on the small screen. By the time we reached the Battle of the Bastards in Season 6, the show was delivering cinematic sequences that rivaled the biggest summer blockbusters. But Game of Thrones was also a story about the cost of power and the weight of history. It asked if a good person could ever be a great ruler, and if the cycle of violence could ever truly be broken. Characters like Jon Snow and Arya Stark grew from children into warriors, while others, like Jaime Lannister, underwent complex redemptions that challenged the audience's sense of right and wrong. The final season remains one of the most debated topics in pop culture history. As the Night King's army finally breached the wall and the dragons turned their fire on King's Landing, The resolution of the many character arcs sparked intense conversation across the globe. Regardless of how one feels about the ending, the sheer scale of the achievement is undeniable. For 8 seasons, it was the focal point of the cultural conversation, bringing together millions of people to watch a single story unfold in real time. The legacy of the show continues through its prequel, House of the Dragon, and the countless fantasy series that have tried to capture its magic. It proved that audiences were hungry for complex, adult-oriented fantasy that didn't pull its punches. It made us care about heraldry, ancient prophecies, and the internal politics of a world that never existed. The next time you hear the low, cello-driven notes of the opening theme, don't just think of dragons and knights. Think of the years of craftsmanship that went into every suit of armor. Think of the actors who spent weeks in the mud and the cold to bring a scene to life. Think of the world of Westeros, a place where the sun sets on the righteous and the wicked alike. The game is over, and the crowns have been settled. But the stories told in the halls of Winterfell and the Red Keep will echo for generations. As the snow falls over the ruins of the throne room, do you see a world destroyed by greed? Or do you see the beginning of a new age, born from the ashes of the old? Thanks for watching.